Hey my friends, why are vintage handpans important? And what is the origin of my idea for Old Souls, this vintage handpan album? It's out tomorrow. I've always thought that early examples of instruments or artwork or music in general are really important to preserve. And where our community is still pretty young, we're under 20 years old, or maybe around 20 years old, we have an obligation to make sure instruments like this beautiful echo sound sculpture are preserved. And not just, it's an old instrument, I'm not interested in it. That mentality is not useful for preserving our collective history. And I know there's many makers, like Rebecca has been doing a lot of storytelling and history work around the handpan. Danny Sorensen, Ray Ford. There's a lot of people that have been around for a while that I've had the pleasure of getting to know, becoming friends with, having conversations with. And we don't have one source to go to for our collective history. So the instruments themselves carry this storyline of players, of makers, of origins, and of endings for some makers. And I think it's important that we preserve that through not only keeping instruments like this alive, but knowing their story. The magic of buying a new instrument from somebody is that you are the person that's going to write the story of that handpan going into the future. The difference between this and a new instrument is that you are part of the lineage of this handpan. So you're adding your story and your relationship on top of this already rich storyline and narrative. And finding value in historical preservation, I think, is going to allow us to continue into the future. Why were handpans priced the way they were in the past? Because they were harder to find, there were less makers. Why are instruments much cheaper now? The market has just radically changed. And even that, if you came into handpan in the last 5 years, you might not have been around to know the price range of these instruments before. I was on like 5 different wait lists back at the beginning, and I ended up with an instrument that was not the best quality for the time period, but it was better than nothing. And now we're in this funny world where you can get an instrument right away, super high quality, for probably half the price of what we would have paid 10 years ago for a high quality instrument like this. So I think Old Souls has really been a way of acknowledging and appreciating and respecting the historical importance of vintage instruments, and then a Zen experience for me in not holding on to the handpan. As you can see, I have a tendency to keep instruments because I'm not just an improviser. My background's in songwriting. I've played guitar for 25, 26 years. And I enjoy writing music. And the problem with writing music is that if you write music rather than just have a pattern or a groove, you become attached to your instrument in a different way. And I think a lot of times when people don't connect with their scale, they have not created something that helps them to connect with that instrument. There's a chronic situation for some people where they buy a new scale and they're like, oh, I need to sell it, I need a new one. And oftentimes the desire for the next instrument for people is that they haven't written something that connects them to that scale. In other cases, it just doesn't work for their playing style. But for me as a songwriter, when I sell a handpan, I'm selling that song. And of course I can play it on a different scale if I happen to encounter that scale again in the future. But me playing the title track off this album on this scale is very different than me playing it on, stainless steel, Ayasa handpan. Same scale, same notes, completely different feeling. So you're passing on the narrative when you sell a handpan. And as somebody that struggles to get rid of instruments because I love the sound of them, this project was really fun because I could acknowledge the importance of these instruments on Mystic Instruments, resonate and sort of pull in their energy from that time period where they were made, and write songs that I felt connected me back to that era and did them justice, in the modern era. So this album is kind of a combination of my normal playing style and my approach in songwriting, and also elements of how players used to engage with instruments. For me, some of my favorite players still are David Swarup and Daniel Waples, and there's a million people really early on that inspired me, and inspired most of us that have been in this community for a long time. And I think listening back to that style of playing, you can sort of feel that the energy and the relationship to instruments was different then. It wasn't as much of a commodity. And we can still have that relationship. It doesn't have to do with availability. It doesn't have to do with the price. It has to do with how we see ourselves in relationship to the instruments. So I really hope that you get the same sort of connected feeling that I have listening to Old Souls. And I really would love to pass on the lineage of these handpans to the right person. This album isn't to sell a bunch of handpans for a cheap price and, clear the shop out. I want to find the right people to fit the right instrument. Along with that, anytime you buy any of the scales featured on Old Souls, you're going to get a tab for that song. So not only do you get the instrument that was played on the album, this piece of history, you also get to see how you could play the song that was written just for that album. So it's kind of a fun way of giving back to the people that purchased them. And they're in all different price ranges. The Logan handpan's very cheap, the Therapan's pretty cheap. So it's worth it if you connect with the scale, totally worth looking at these instruments. And let me know what you think of the album tomorrow when it launches. I'm going to be doing a live stream talking about that around then. But I just want to feature a couple of the handpans that are present on this. So let's take a look at the instruments involved and the instruments that will be available for sale tomorrow. Thank you guys for listening.